Hello everyone and welcome back to MedExplain, a YouTube channel dedicated to teaching medicine. Today we will be starting the first of our anatomy series with an introductory video. We will be defining anatomical terms, for example, planes of the body, and we will be looking at what the anatomical position is. This will be followed by a fun and interactive quiz to test your knowledge at the end of this video. So, before we begin, a little fact for the day. Did you know that the word anatomy is Greek in origin? If we break down the word, ana means apart and tomi means to cut. So in a literal sense, anatomy in Greek means to cut apart. So why is this video of anatomical terminology so important to learn before we go ahead in the anatomy series? Well, the precise nomenclature allows communication and discussions of anatomy on an international level. For example, during surgery, you may need to accurately and precisely describe the location of, for example, a cancerous mass, with respect to its surrounding anatomical landmarks. Terminology, which will be taught in this video, is therefore very important. So let's begin with defining the anatomical position. Whenever you are describing anatomy, you always refer to the anatomical position. This is so that we all have the same reference point when describing parts of the body. The anatomical position is one whereupon the person is standing up straight, with their head and eyes pointed forwards, arms down by their sides, and the palms of the hands also facing forwards. Similarly, the lower limbs are close together, with the toes facing forwards as well. Henceforth, when describing anatomy, you do so with reference to this standardized anatomical position. Now let's have a look at anatomical planes. Planes are imaginary lines that pass through the body. There are 4 planes in total, of which we will discuss in turn now. The median plane is a vertical plane passing longitudinally through the center of the body, dividing the body into equal right and left sides. There is only one median plane, whereas there are many sagittal planes, which are vertical planes parallel to the median plane. For example, here is the sagittal plane passing through the midpoint of the right clavicle. The third plane is a coronal plane. Coronal in Latin means crown, so the best way to understand this plane is to imagine a crown on your head, moving down to slice the body into a front and back, also known as anterior and posterior sections. The coronal plane is also known as the frontal plane. The fourth plane passes through the body horizontally to divide the body into upper and lower portions, also known as superior and inferior divisions. This is the transverse plane. Now, let's put this into context and play a little quiz. Here, on the left, we have an image of the brain. The brain has been cut into various planes to produce the cross-section images on the right. Again, using the anatomical position, what planes of the brain have produced each individual image? Please pause the video now and have a go at the quiz before we go through the answers. Now time for the answers. Image A is a frontal, also known as a coronal plane of the brain. This is best understood if we again think about the crown on top of your head, slicing the brain and body into anterior and posterior portions. Here is a bird's eye view of the brain to help you better understand. Image B is a cross-section of the brain being split into right and left sections. If this section was in the center of the brain, it is referred to as the median plane, creating equal sizes of right and left brain hemispheres. If the plane was not in the center of the brain, it is referred to as a sagittal plane. Both answers can be accepted here. Image C is a horizontal cross-section of the brain, dividing the brain into superior and inferior portions. Hence, this is a transverse plane. Well done on the quiz, everyone. Let's move on now to discuss the anatomical terms of relation. These are adjectives used to compare the position of anatomical structures. So again, if we take the anatomical position and say we need to describe a structure as being above or below another, we can use the terms superior and inferior. Let's put that into context. We can say that the eyes are superior to the lips, and conversely, the lips being below the eyes are said to be inferior to the eyes. We can also describe a structure in relation to the median plane. A structure closer to the median plane compared to another is described as being more medial, whilst the structure further away is described as being lateral. Again, putting that into context, the ears are further away from the median plane compared to the eyes. Therefore, the ears are lateral, and the eyes, being closer to the median plane, are more medial than the ears. We can also describe anatomical structures by their distance from the trunk of the body. Closer to the trunk, they are described as being proximal, whilst further away, they are described as being distal. For example, the thumb is the furthest point away from the trunk on the upper limbs, and so is described as being distal. The wrist, being closer to the trunk, is more proximal than the thumb. The back and the front of the body also have their own anatomical terms. The front face of the body is anterior, whilst the back is the posterior aspect. These terms are best used describing internal structures. For example, muscles. We can say that the quadriceps on the front of the thighs are anterior, whilst the hamstrings at the back of the thighs are posterior. We can also describe when a structure is internally deeper or more superficial than another using these adjectives. The final anatomical terms we will discuss are specialized names for the surfaces of the hands. Now, if we recall the anatomical position, the palms of the hands face forwards. This means that the anterior surface of the hand is the palm, also known as the palmar surface, whilst the posterior aspect of the hand is the dorsum. These terms are used similarly when describing the surfaces of the feet. Now that we've covered the anatomical terms, let's try to put this into practice with a summary quiz. Again, try and pause the video and answer the questions before we go through the answers at the end of the video. So let's begin. Question 1. In the anatomical position, describe the relation of the little fingernail on the left hand with relation to the left thumb pad. Again, pause the video now before we move on to question 2. Question 2. What plane does this image represent? Question 3. Using the anatomical position, describe the anatomical location of the kneecap to the heel. And finally, question 4. Define and describe the anatomical position. Okay everyone, well done on attempting the quiz. Let's go through the answers. So, question 1. Let's first identify where the left little fingernail is and where the left thumb pad is. And then use the anatomical terms we've just learned to compare their positions. So in the anatomical position, as the palm of the hand is facing forwards, the little fingernail is closer to the midline, whereas the thumb is more lateral. The thumb pad is also on the palmar aspect of the hand, whereas the nail is on the dorsal or posterior aspect of the hand. In summary, the little fingernail is more medial and posterior to the thumb pad. Question 2 was looking at terms of transactions through the body. Question 2 was looking at terms of transections of the body. Here, the plane was a horizontal cross-section of the thigh. This plane is called a transverse plane. Question 3, in a similar way to question 1, requires you to first identify the position of the kneecap and the heel, and then use the anatomical terms we've learnt to compare. The kneecap is on the anterior aspect of the leg, whereas the heel is posterior. The kneecap is also proximal compared to the heel, and conversely, the heel is distal to the kneecap. The final question. The anatomical position is the standard reference position used to describe anatomical structures, whereupon a person is standing up straight, their head facing forward, arms by their sides, and palms facing up. I hope you found this video useful and learned a lot about anatomical terms. As always, this has been MedExplain. Please like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video.